Hey, what's up guys? Eric here, and in this video we are once again talking about The Flash, aka the box office disaster of 2023. Look, I can't sugarcoat this anymore. I've tried to be as positive as I can, thinking maybe it's going to have another good weekend, maybe it's going to pick up steam, maybe it'll turn things around, because I thought the movie was quite okay. But I know there's a lot of controversy surrounding the movie. People didn't want to see it because of Ezra Miller. I get it. Snyder fans that didn't want to see it because Henry Cavill's Superman wasn't in it. Snyder fans that didn't want to see it because Ben Affleck's Batman it's going to be his last time as Batman. They didn't want to see that either. People that didn't like the tone of it, people thought it was going to be too silly, goofy, too Marvel-fied. Just all the drama and controversy surrounding this movie being the best superhero movie ever. There was just so much stuff going on behind the scenes that this movie just did not have a chance to really get running, if you know what I mean. Excuse the pun here. But look, the collateral damage may be even worse for DC and Warner Brothers because there's two other movies coming out this year, both of them very different films. We have the Blue Beetle movie and we have Aquaman coming out, and we're going to talk about it here in this article. They may end up suffering from this as well because it's just been a really rough road for DC and Warner Brothers. And it looks to be, I've checked online, it seems like Across the Spider-Verse may actually move back into the #1 spot this weekend, which can't be good for Warner Brothers and DC right now. There's so many things going on with David Zaslav. It would be a whole entire different video. But let's go ahead and get into this. The Flash is the second of 4 mega budgeted DC adaptations of the studio set to release this year. Started with Shazam! Fury of the Gods in March and followed by Blue Beetle and Aquaman: The Lost Kingdom in August and December. Yet these movies were conceived and greenlit by an executive team, that all have departed the studio. In their place, the new DC Studios chief James Gunn and Peter Safran have announced they will reboot the DC franchise in 2025, starting with Gunn's Superman Legacy. It says, that left Warner's in one of the worst rock and a hard place conundrums in memory. It's a 2023 slate of DC films that are now orphans in a moribund cinematic universe, but the studio still needs audiences to see them at a blockbuster scale. It's perhaps unavoidable but terrible case of timing, says a source at a rival studio. I wonder what rival studio that is. Could it be Marvel? Could it be another one? Who knows? Audiences don't feel like they have to invest 2 hours of their life because it's not going to matter going forward. That's the thing about a connected universe. And I've talked about this before. If you've been watching my channel, by the way, subscribe if you're not. I've talked about this before, that the great thing about Marvel is that everything is connected, and the awful thing about Marvel is that everything is connected. And DC is what you see what can happen if that connectivity gets severed at any point in time. DC, as the DCEU, has been very all over the place. Then you have the Elseworld stories, like the Batman movie and the Joker stuff. So there's been a lot of things going on that have probably confused the audience a little bit. I'm the first one to say that most audiences get it, but I can't say that but so many times and then watch audiences not get it. So maybe this is a case of that. Maybe it is. Indeed, things have not been going well. The production budgets and likely marketing spends for these 4 films will cost between 1.1 and 1.2 billion in total, according to experts outside the studio. But Shazam 2 has already bombed, earning a feeble 133 million globally. Yikes. And The Flash just opened to a mere 55 million in the US, and Canada grossing 135.7 million worldwide as of June 19th. Well under expectations and nowhere near what a film of this caliber and cost needs to approach breaking even. Now, we've talked about this before. If you haven't been on my channel, I'm going to give you a quick crash course on this. Breaking even is basically the cost of the film and production, the advertising budget, and then you just put those two together, and that is your break-even amount. However, there are other factors that come into play, like partnerships with other brands, companies that do product placements, tax incentives in different filming locations. So a lot of times that number can be dropped depending, because the production budget will change depending on those things. But those are things that we don't know. We don't know those usually until well after the movie has been released, and then sometimes we don't even find out. So breaking even, usually roughly, I would say production cost plus advertising cost is a break even amount. That's what I would go with. It's the easy one to go with. But I don't think this movie's going to get that. This movie's opening should be 120 million domestic, says an industry veteran who's worked with many major campaigns. This is an unmitigated disaster, and a spokesperson for Warner Brothers declined to comment. 120 million domestic. So that is double and a little bit more than what it made, which was 55 million opening in domestic. That is really bad. And it doesn't help that the movie is not getting enough good word of mouth. That's another big problem. We go on to say here, to compensate for the absence of its problematic lead, Warner spent heavily on TV spots during the NBA Finals, and director Andy Muschietti did multiple interviews unreservedly praising Miller. If you don't remember those, that was one of the things that happened. We saw him coming out saying that Miller, that they were getting treatment and that they had been doing everything they could to make this work behind the scenes. Gunn called the film one of the best superhero movies I've ever seen. Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav didn't bother qualifying, hyping The Flash as the best superhero movie outright at CinemaCon in April. I think this was a huge mistake. I don't like when things are advertised this way. I think it sets up a really bad expectation, and I'm not the only one that feels that way. In the next paragraph here, it says, when they called it the greatest superhero movie, if it's not correct, you're setting yourself up to fail, says an executive at a rival studio. In this environment, it's better to under-promise and over-deliver, and I 100% agree with that. They have an interesting graph here. This is the DC, EU, and other adjacent Elseworlds movies. And as you can see, the start of it was pretty strong. They didn't have like any massive like billion-dollar movies in the beginning. And then here comes Aquaman, 1 billion. Then we had Shazam, which severely underperformed compared to Aquaman. Joker came back, was another big, huge movie for them with $1 billion. And then Birds of Prey came, and then we had the COVID era, with like Wonder Woman, Suicide Squad, The Batman, which kind of brought them back on a right path, which shows them that, hey, these Elseworld movies do matter, and we want to keep doing them because both Joker and Batman did extremely well. Black Adam, which came up here and didn't do great, pretty much a disaster. Shazam! Fury of the Gods, another disaster, and it looks to be The Flash is yet another disaster for DC and Warner Brothers. Batman is so strong on its own, it doesn't really need to be tied down with these other characters, Bach says. But that's exactly what Gunn and Safran are planning. Muschietti is set to direct Batman, the Brave and the Bold, one of the 10 interconnected film and TV DC titles planned through roughly 2027, including Gunn's Superman, which I think we're all looking forward to. I think everybody's excited about James Gunn's Superman. Well, most people are. I'm not going to say everybody. Moving forward, Warner's and DC must walk a painfully narrow path, Gunn said recently, and the titular character of Blue Beetle is the first DCU character, which could save the film from feeling like a lame duck, but also ties it to a cinematic universe that audiences have yet to embrace. Meanwhile, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom will conclude in the old DC universe for good, and whether it can approach the $1.1 billion global take of 2018's Aquaman without a cinematic feature is unclear. Ultimately, the most important factor remains quality. There can be audience fatigue when it comes to the obligation of having to watch 20 movies to understand a new one, but it doesn't matter when the movie is good. And I absolutely agree with that. If you've got a good movie on your hands, it doesn't matter what it's tied to. We've seen this time and time again when it comes to these films. Look, The Flash is my favorite DC character. I absolutely love this character. I've always been critical of Ezra in the role, and I still do not condone anything that Ezra has done because they have had some awful things happen. But the reality is, I think Ezra is not one of the problems in this movie. This movie is actually a lot of fun. I think a lot of the characters in the movie are fun, but I think because of complications with Ezra and other things, people are choosing not to see the movie, and that is their choice. I'm not judging anybody for doing that. If you chose not to see this movie because of any of those reasons, that is your prerogative, and you are totally free to do that. Luckily, I got a free chance to see the movie early on. The final cut of the movie, I know a lot of my friends got to go like a month ago, and they got to see the, I guess, a special cut that took out a bunch of the stuff. I got to see the final cut for free. I was still debating whether I was going to spend money to see this movie, because even though I love The Flash as a character, I was sort of torn on, you know, everything that's happened with Ezra. So I understand it. I get it. And I know some people feel the same way, and that's fine. But this looks like the ramifications of this could travel through to the next two films. Blue Beetle may suffer. Aquaman may suffer. We're going to have to wait and see where that's going to go. So that's pretty much it for this video. Let me know down below, do you see Blue Beetle doing really well? How do you think it's going to hold up with everything that's happening with the Flash movie? What do you think about Aquaman? Apparently they're doing reshoots for that. There's rumors of that. We talked about that in another video. You'll be able to see it here in a second. If you haven't seen it, go click on it and check that out. They might be reshooting that to make it work within the new DCU. We have no idea, because I think James Gunn wants to keep Jason Momoa. So we'll have to wait and see. That's pretty much it. I'm out of here. Everyone, leave your thoughts down below. Take care.